4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio. Live from the heart of the downtown east side, it's Talk Recovery Radio with Giuseppe Ganci and Darren Gaylor on Vancouver's Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. From the streets to the studio, bringing you addiction recovery stories from real people with lived experience and real experts on today's issues. Tune in live every Thursday, noon to 1. Powered by New West Recovery. Real people, real issues, real life. Talk Recovery Radio.
And good afternoon, Vancouver. Hello, hello. There you see our re-podcasting streaming places that you can catch us. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Darren Gaylor.
Hey, happy holidays.
Happy holidays. So who wore it better, Darren or Giuseppe? Look at that Christmas hat you got there, Darren.
Pretty good fit right there.
Yes, it is. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, powered by New West Recovery, Canada's recovery community. And you know what? We're coming up to 2022. And what does that mean? That means it's coming up to our 8th season. That means 8 years of shows, hundreds of guests, thousands of listeners. Darren, we've been doing this for 8 years.
I love it.
We haven't aged a bit. At least I don't think I have. So. That's called Zoom enhancement.
I had some Facebook memories come on recently where it was a couple of pictures of you and I don't know if I sent them to you, but I was like, wow.
Yeah,
We've known each other a long time.
We've known each other for a long time. It's been great doing this show and, bringing recovery issues to the airways, thanks to all the listeners and so forth. And we really appreciate that. And we really appreciate Vancouver Co-op Radio for giving us the space on the radio. If you're listening to us on the radio, 100.5 FM, you're listening to last week's show where we're 1 week behind. The station's still closed due to this COVID pandemic. So we're coming to you through Zoom technology. And so just a shout out to Vancouver Co-op Radio, who's trying their best to get the studio back open again. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're watching us on your favorite streaming device, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, follow us, hit a like, share, and we really appreciate all those restreams. And of course, you can go to talkrecoveryradio.com and get all the information on our past shows. So, we got a special show for you this week. We got Amanda coming up in a little bit. She's going to be talking about her personal Christmas holiday season's greeting, whatever works for you, lived experience with a loved one in recovery and a loved one still in the downtown east side. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But Darren and I decided to do a show on clean and sober holidays with a big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's that time of year. We talked a little bit about it, last week, to sort of on the heel of our guest last week, talking about, grieving at this time, right? Like being around other people, being invited places. And, I really liked, that conversation. I mean, you even felt, a little awkward, if we can call it that, just like, how do we bring it up, just as a guest on our show and, to say the person's name. And I think a big one was just it, and just to remind, if there's a lot of people that are having a Christmas with someone in their life that isn't going to be there this year, like a lot of people, right? Whether you're a mom or a friend or a child, like there's a lot of us that are having a Christmas this year without that person. And, I think we spend a lot of time trying to avoid grief and, see it as like a negative, don't bring that. But that's, one of the ideas was to invite that grief and honor that grief, and respect that grief and know that it's there with us. Right. And whatever conversations come about, we'll help heal that. Right.
Well,
So
it's amazing. I mean, I was doing some research the other day, and it's the AIDS epidemic, and you know how many people passed away in the Metro Vancouver area and so forth, and just looking at the numbers because they're coming out with more and more numbers for the overdose crisis, and in the last 5 years, 20 people have passed away, and if you look at the AIDS numbers, they weren't as high as the overdose numbers. And you gotta ask yourself, like I remember, being a gay man and heavily in the bar world, just all the fundraisers for AIDS, all the opportunities for people with HIV, all of the programs put in place, and there was a sense of unity, amongst everybody. It was there. It was just different than what's going on with the overdose crisis, and I'm not too sure how to change it all. But you don't see, other than like organizations having fundraisers for their own programs like that, there's no public, like, national or provincial kind of fundraising, and how do we build this unified conversation. Rather, it's like we're all fighting for dollars, so we all have to prove our way's better than your way, to get the grant. It's created a really bizarre world, but this show is about getting through Christmas clean and sober. So we're gonna try to get away from my, always destination of politics. So let's talk about that. We came up with some great points. You can see them if you're on Facebook watching us. You can see the some of the points that we were talking about, and Darren and I came up with these main conversation pieces for those that are on the radio or streaming us. One of the first ones was, getting through Christmas dinner being the only sober person there. So, that changes for you. Obviously family dynamics play a big role in this, so let's say there is a big family dinner, and you're just coming out of rehab and you're sober, and all that kind of stuff. Darren, what was it like for you? I mean, obviously you've had changes,
yeah.
if you want to call them that.
You know what? Like, I mean, this is an important thing, because it begs the question of, like, does your self-esteem, like, is it stable enough for that to be okay? Do you know what I mean? Like, so I remember my first Christmas, when I was clean, and my mom, an amazing support as she was, like, was telling me, I'm notifying the family, anybody who's coming over, we're like, there's no drinking, and I mean, that was sort of the suggestions that we were getting, right? Like, if there's booze there, don't go, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, you have to protect yourself, and like, this is treatment, right? Like, we have to be that black and white. And I remember, just feeling ashamed when at the thought of my mom phoning everybody, and, for Darren, and because of Darren, and, there's going to be no booze. And I know my family would have been like, yeah, okay, fine, no problem. Like, nobody was that, strict about making sure they had booze there. But I just felt like I was the disabled person that was coming, right? And I didn't want to be that. Like I didn't want to be the burden. And whether it was right or wrong, I chose to go to brunch instead, and I didn't go to the dinner that my mom was going to clear out all the alcohol for. Like, I just said, like, look, Mom, that feels really heavy on my shoulders. I'm like, just go without any sort of rules or expectations or obligations. And
you said a key point, talk. So I think it's one of those things where there's really no right or wrong, and there's so many different dynamics. But the one key point is like really talk about it and really say, hey, this bothers me, or hey, this doesn't bother me, and talk to the sponsors or talk to your support group or whatever recovery pathway you're choosing, who's helping you, your counselor. And it's important to do the conversation piece. And it's also important to realize like it's just a dinner.
Yeah.
It's just a dinner. And being here just where I work, it's like it's Christmas, and it's like 3 weeks ago you're shooting heroin, haven't talked to your family and years, and then all of a sudden today's the most important day. What is that? You know what I mean? What is that?
I mean, I think it's just the expectation and the media and what we've made it out to be. Like, the funny thing was, I think it was the next year where like I didn't ask my mom if she's taken out the booze at the dinner. Like it wasn't a conversation. We show up, like nobody's drinking.
Yeah,
like
it's surprising.
it wasn't a thing that my family needed to drink at.
There was a story, where this guy would go on hunting trips all the time with, he had a core group of hunters that he would go hunting with. And like these guys go hunting for like 2 weeks in the bush and all that kind of stuff where you can't even contact them. And obviously alcohol was a big player of it. And then he was in rehab and got clean. And, then the following year came up and it was time to go hunting. And he went, inside out. He's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't, I know if I'll go, I'll drink. I don't want to miss it. And, the addict brain just going, what ifs and how coulds and should I and all that. And then the simple, did you ask them if they'll do a dry hunting trip? And then he just thought that will never happen, right? And well, he did. He took the suggestion, he talked it over with his friends, and it's now a dry hunting trip. And everyone's like, yeah, our friendship's important, and it's just surrounding yourself with people that support you, and all that kind of stuff. And that's really important as part of the recovery journey is surrounding yourself with people that support you. It's kind of, and I don't want to make this, it's like, say your uncle's dying of lung cancer. Are you all going to sit around smoking cigarettes, blowing smoke at them? You know what I mean? At the Christmas dinner. Oh, well, that's different. Well, your loved one, I don't know if you check, but 20,000 people have died of overdoses. That doesn't include cigarettes, alcohol, all the other harms. We're talking huge numbers. And there's this thing that when someone's in crisis with addiction, it's a crisis. We need to fix it. But the minute, you get a couple pounds on and you're, 30 days in recovery, it's like, oh, that was just, and there's no harm in drinking. I don't want to, every Christmas needs to be dry. It's the conversation. And I think 10 years ago, it would have been a really hard conversation to have with families. I think 20 years ago, impossible. I think today with what's going on, I think people are more open to the conversation. And, Darren, do you have a sponsee, his family's going to be drinking tons on Christmas, they're feeling uncomfortable, what would you say to them?
I mean, don't go.
Don't go, eh?
Yeah. I mean, like we're all different, right? And I think things change as we get, build more of a foundation in our recovery. And, not saying that like I go places where there's booze, but it doesn't have that effect on me per se.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, when I was new, like I had to be careful and I didn't know how to make those conversations come about, right? Like I've been the guy everybody walked around eggshells with no matter what day it was. And it's about overprotecting yourself, like so that you have the next year to make new plans and like to figure it out next year. You want to get to next year, you want to get to the next day.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, you want to make it to New Year's.
I mean,
so protect yourself, talk about it, ask people, and don't make final decisions just because that's the way appearances should be kept. It's like we're dealing with addiction, and it's one of those things where you really need to take it serious. So one of our second points was supporting your loved ones that may be clean or sober. So like you've got to you've got a new person sitting at the turkey table, it's just like, oh my God, they're my son's clean. And we touched on it in the beginning there, obviously have conversations and so forth. My only suggestion is if you have a loved one that's early in recovery, don't take it for granted that what you're doing is okay. Ask your loved one, like, hey, um, how are you feeling about Christmas dinner? I think it gives them the opportunity to feel like, oh, people are listening and really taking my recovery journey seriously, like any other journey that you would do for recovery in any other healthcare instance, right?
Yeah. I mean, especially if they're currently in a safe place where they've attained some sobriety, that like that option of them just staying where they are is okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the idea. I mean, maybe somebody needs a little family in their life, and that's
And then there's chosen family. Don't forget about that. Like, when you're in recovery, you have a chosen family that you always have options. Darren came up with this really good one. I wasn't even thinking about this until he brought it up, but you're back in your family's life, decade of addiction, maybe longer, maybe shorter. Now what? Getting over the awkward feeling of thinking you need to make amends to everyone at the dinner table. That was great, Darren. Awesome
well,
topic.
I mean, they're all there, right? To take the opportunity
Yeah.
to run through the
They're all
table
at the table.
of apologies and bringing up some of the past harms.
Yeah. I experienced that, and all the letters in my pocket, you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things like, I'm not saying don't do that, but definitely, Christmas may not be Christmas table, definitely not, but everybody wants to celebrate and so forth. I mean, if you feel like it's the right time to make an amends, but the whole amends process too, it's not like there's a right time or place. It's obviously the feelings needs to be there as well, and the readiness. But we say this a lot. The best gift isn't material, or it's just the presence of being there. And like I remember having all this guilt and shame about disappearing in my family's life for like well over a decade. I was just not around. And that comes back every once in a while. How could I have done that? But when I talk about it with family, or they're just like, oh, we're just happy you're here, and they truly mean it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I there's an obligation I think we feel for those of us in a process of like where an amends is a responsibility. I mean, I think it is to anybody in life, that's caused people harm. Like, you apologize if you want to heal your soul, but we feel obligated, those of us that have done the steps where it's like I'm on this is a thing I have to do, and there they are, like, when we're supposed to do it whenever possible, and here's this opportunity. And I mean, I remember feeling like, like a weight, like a need, like I had to. And I think that can just be met with, like you say, just, if something needs to be said, that there's just, hey, I appreciate being here.
Mm-hmm.
I know last year was hard. I'm grateful for everybody, and it's good to be here, in a clear state of mind. Like, if something has to be said, almost like as you would in a toast, or just everybody's going around the table and sharing something that they're grateful for, right? Like, there's an opportunity.
And the belief in time, like time will heal as well. And my first couple of Christmases at the beginning of my recovery journey, I honestly don't even remember them. Like, it's like I'll remember this Christmas, and I remember last Christmas, and it's just that they just keep on getting better year after year. I don't need to have all that pressure on, like, this needs to be the best.
Yeah.
This needs to be the best, and it just needs to be the best I can do. There's a difference.
And dishes.
Yeah.
That was my go-to thing. Like, to actively, help out, and to not, feel like I'm just sort of standing there in an awkward,
Mm-hmm.
what do I do with my hands? And
Do the dishes.
conversation.
Yeah.
do the dishes.
Do the dishes. The
You
house,
know?
what's the saying? The house won't run if the dishes ain't done. Special
That's
shout
right.
out to Brendan B, who came up with that lyric in a song he did a while ago. So what's more important? Ooh, this is triggering. What's
Yeah.
more important? Christmas dinner or a meeting? For those of you that
If
go
you're
to
a person
12-step
in
meetings.
recovery,
If you're a person in recovery, what's more important? And you go home for the holidays for a week, family, I gotta do family stuff. What's more important, Christmas or a meeting? And I think that's pretty powerful, because it's it's one of those things, what meetings gave, for those people in 12-step recovery, meetings gave us an opportunity to enjoy Christmas. And it's quite powerful going to a meeting during holiday breaks, especially Christmas time, because there are new people in those rooms, and they look up and they're like, wow, like,
yeah.
why are you here? You're like 10 years, 15, 20 years in, and you're still going to come to a meeting. And it's like, yeah, to support you. So that's one thing. But it also, and I rem not to call out my sister or anything. Well, I just did, I guess. But shoot. Just, oh, why do you still got to go to those? And it's education. It's like,
Yeah.
I have
That's
to,
that's a
what I
legit
mean? I have
question.
to, I want to, and I like to, and I mean, I'm not like going because I'm punished and I have to go. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's a different kind of have to, right?
Yeah, you're not there because you have nowhere else to be, because your family won't invite you in their house.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm at a meeting, struggling and suffering, and that's the thing that I think some people don't understand. Like, if you're better now, if you're so far removed from your addiction, why do you need to keep going? And is it still as important to go to a meeting, if you've recovered,
Yeah.
than to be, at families dinner, or whatever obligation that is always there in the holidays? First of all, holidays, just that word in and of itself is like, I stop doing what I do and I just take a break.
Yeah.
Right. And so, not even thinking about it, for people in recovery, it's like they've just put off some recovery, because it's shopping, it's this, it's that, it's going here, it's driving there, it's going
Yeah.
to see the lights, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just
and sometimes you might not be, you know what I mean? Your aunt's coming at 6 o'clock, your uncle you haven't seen is coming at 8 o'clock, and
right.
it's kind of like, well, I can't miss these. So I like to do this kind of equation in my head, where if I have the opportunity to go to a meeting, if my brain says bleep it, no, I'm not going, it's different than, wanting to go, but you just can't go because life shows up. I think that's the difference. It's like, I could go, but you know what, I don't want to go. I think that's the difference in what's more important, dinner or meeting. The dinner's super important, the meeting's super important. It's one of those things where, depending on where you're at in your recovery journey, one's could be more important than the other. But also, part of that amends is being there for your family during Christmas, and you don't want them to rearrange their entire life too, right? But it's just, do you have the opportunity to go? Yes, I do, but I don't want to go. I think that's the journey to possibly some harms.
Right. If I'm looking at my watch and standing up to put my coat on to go to a meeting as my mom's putting the dinner on the table for everyone to eat, I'm kind of that guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I used to be the guy when she would do that, and it's, sorry, mom, I gotta hit the club, I gotta go. Like, I just,
Right.
like, I did that.
Oh yeah.
When I was in my addiction, I left Christmas dinner, Easter, all the dinners. I left them all early because I had to go, but so I don't really have to go anywhere anymore. It's more like, I like to, and if I have the opportunity, I will. And that's the gift of recovery, freedom and choices, and that's what this is all about. So awesome topics, getting through Christmas sober, supporting your loved ones clean and sober at the Christmas table, getting back in your family's life and having all that guilt, like you think you need to make amends to everybody right away, you don't. And what's more important, Christmas dinner or meeting? It's, if you have the opportunity, go. If you have the opportunity and don't want to go, maybe that's something you should talk about with your sponsor and so forth. But you can get through the holidays clean and sober. Chosen family is a big player. in that. And if you have the opportunity to have a home group and some friends and support group, use them. Darren said at the beginning of the show, talk, ask, don't take anything for granted. Maybe your mom doesn't even know that this is a problem, and we just believe that, oh, my mom should know this is a problem. Well, maybe she doesn't, so ask her and bring it up and all that kind of stuff. So we're bringing Amanda on the show. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio, Vancouver Co-op Radio. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening to us on one of our podcast streaming devices, hit follow and like. Talk Recovery Radio is powered by New West Recovery. We're doing a Christmas show for you on 100.5 FM, Vancouver Co-op Radio. And we got Amanda closing off our show. Amanda, I don't know if you've listened to the first half of the show, but we've been talking about getting through the holidays in recovery, being a new person, being somebody with, a decade clean. Like, it's no different. It still struggles a little easier and stuff. Yeah. So, I wanted to bring you on the show because you're kind of in three worlds, which is great. Well, you're probably in a lot more than three, but the three worlds we want to talk about here is you're a person in recovery.
Yes.
You're a mom of somebody in recovery.
Yes.
And you're a mom of someone who is still suffering with the harms of addiction. And so you've got a couple of different lenses that we really, and you kind of suit all those points that we were talking about earlier. So, just you yourself, like how are you getting through the holidays clean and sober? You got a lot on your plate.
Oh, I do. Well, I just first and foremost, I just want to say thank you and Merry Christmas. And it's always great to be with you and Darren.
Awesome.
So this Christmas, I think it's interesting. I think for me, recovery is first and foremost. I don't have Christmas without recovery. And I also know that I am juggling a few different worlds, as you said. And I think being a mom in recovery, and I have a son that's on the downtown on the east side, which I'll be going down there and try to lay some track and see if I can find him to give him a coat. I also have two sons who are struggling with their first Christmas without their dad, and how I've been getting through, going to meetings, helping newcomers. I have chosen family. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was thinking about the first year of my Christmas and I wasn't welcomed home. And, just because I put the drugs down or the drink down, like,
you notice how we all laugh, like such a traumatic, sad, we all just laugh. Like, that's what I love about recovery and our chosen family. We all think alike. It's like, my family don't want me.
Well, it's interesting because I hadn't been home for over 20 years. I spent several Christmases incarcerated. I spent several Christmases, my family and my kids, living without their mother because addiction robs. And so when you come back into recovery, I got to this chosen family and I went to meetings and I went to those 24-hour meetings and those marathon meetings and I got to be of service. And I remember putting a whole bunch of cards together and just handing them out to strangers because it's a gift that keeps on giving.
So to a newcomer that's out there right now, like they just, they've been using and now they're like the first 3 months, it's Christmas and, they want to get back into the Christmas family spirit. Like, you needed time. So what do you recommend they do? What do you suggest?
Well, I think for me, I'm really grateful I went to meetings. We're in trying times right now with this COVID and an overdose. And I didn't have some of the stressors and the barriers that they're having right now. But for me, newcomers, get to meetings, phone your sponsor, go with other family to Christmases, keep yourself safe.
Go with other families to their Christmas parties.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
If you're going to a family that, still celebrating with alcohol and you're moving in, maybe go in with a friend and maybe stay for an hour. What your values are. I know for myself, I had to do what was right for me. And I can't be all things to all people. And I do know that 10 years later, after I do this, I'll be going to go do service work. I've always jumped in and was always part of other people's Christmases to help mothers so they can be with their kids, so I can celebrate that for them, with them, because we need that community. Yeah. And that was the gift for me.
It's I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, somebody that understands, what you're saying by going to meetings, by doing service. I know what that's doing for you. When you talk about, like, the two sons that don't have a dad, when you talk about, not having to go through too much grief when you're with, your child that's in recovery. But when you're downtown in the east side, where you hailed from as well, and
A little bit.
and you're trying to find your son, just to put a coat on him, like, you can't convince me that you're doing that in your bubbly personality, that you're having some feelings, that it's difficult, that you're going through waves of emotion. Like what is it, that you're doing that's allowing that to be like a healthy thing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, rather than like, oh no, don't go down there, you can't handle it, it's too hard, it's too difficult, because that's what we say to ourselves. Oh, I can't handle this. What makes you handle it?
Um, I think I have no other choice sometimes. It's like, what can I live with? Like,
Mm,
I'm 53 years old in June. I have a colorful background. I feel like I have this second chance at life. I have people like you in my life. I have a sponsor in my life. I have a recovery community. I've been doing this for a long time, with or without. I don't have the conventional family setting. Addiction has robbed my family through and through. And even just because I'm in recovery, like how my kids are handling it in their adult ways, uh, I'm respecting them enough on the air that I don't want to speak too much about them. But for me, as a mom, um, if I can find him, that's a bonus. If I can put a coat on him, that's a bonus. If not, I keep doing what I've always done. I don't know how I get through this. Maybe I'm built for this shit. I don't know.
yeah, I think that's the answer. I just wanted to put it out there because you are an example of, like, these are the excuses that a lot of us have in recovery, that's the reason why we relapse, like, the hardship that our kids still using, or the grief that we're dealing with. And it's so important to know that it's all relative to where we are at in our own personal recovery, obviously. But that it is so possible that it could leave you with more regret not going to see if you can put a coat on your son than actually going, right?
Yeah,
Like that's just a little bit of a glimpse into what recovery can do, and what's sometimes how our responsibilities change after building a foundation of recovery, that we can do those things that maybe we weren't able to do in our first year, right?
I think so. Yeah. I also know that at the end of the day, like, I know where I'm going to be at dinner time,
Mm,
and I know that I'm going to be in New West, and I'm going to be sitting with my chosen family, with a community of people, and I'll be sitting with lots of people and watching people come together. Um, I think I have my little moments, and I think it's those moments of what my grief may be, or what my acceptance of who and what I became in my addiction,
mm,
or ideally of who I am, regardless, as a mother, as a woman in recovery, as a woman who spent years in prison, as a woman who spent years on the street. I think it doesn't really matter. When you come back strong, you come back hard, and I value recovery. And if I can connect with my kid and put a warm coat on him and slap a hug on him, like, that's the moment of connection.
I
And I just
definitely,
want,
Amanda, the other piece too. I mean, yes, yes, yes. And also, people had faith in you
yes.
and you believed it. Everyone has faith in each other. I mean, you come in, from my experience coming into, it's just like the world is horrible, and no
Mm,
one, and I don't trust anybody, and all these, and I'm sure you didn't trust anybody. Like, we all had these, and then we
not with
open
guys for
up.
years.
Yeah, we we open up, and start to believe, people have faith in me, and I have faith that I can actually do this. And you bought in, and you did the work, and because you did that work and bought in and believed, that helps you, be able to put yourself out there to help others, including your own loved ones and your families. I mean,
Exactly.
there's so many people that's, in you work in the harm reduction community, and a big part there trying to introduce recovery to people that might not believe that they have the right to recover.
Um, I think I love hard, and I choose to love, and I just want to spread that. And I think, I'm not saying I'm immune, but I know I don't have to do this alone. And yeah, I have feelings, but I also know I would be doing this for other mothers' children, so I can do it for mine. And I know that I have other people in my life that bring me in as their own and adopt me into their families. So it's a ripple effect. I keep going back to the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Well, in an isolated life, when we're experiencing grief, tragedy, loss, like we're alone experiencing that, and that's it. And it hopefully enough time goes by that it goes away. Maybe. I mean, I'm hearing like when we're not alone and we're going through that, we can just transfer that into other people's lives.
Yeah.
Like rather than just feel sorry for ourselves and sit in self-pity, that we can just, what do I do with this energy? I go over here and I find another mom that hasn't had this experience, and have compassion for her and be her support. And I mean, I don't we try to say what is recovery sometimes, and it's like it goes so deep that we can pretty much accept the worst in our lives and still not be okay, but get through.
There's a whole world out there trying to redefine what recovery means. And I look at that whole narrative, I'm like, people in recovery don't even know what it means. It's just, it changes every day. It changes. It's like every day, every year it changes. We're going to end up, Amanda, stay with us, please, but we're going to end up with the show with, this has all been Holiday Chair, but, a little bit more Holiday Chair. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. And we're going to talk about, I hear some weird noise there. Is that me, or there we go? Christmas is all about presents, and if you joined us last week, let's just right down to the truth, right? So if you joined us last week, where there was Recovery Kids was on the show, and I asked Alexis to come back on the show, give us an update. How did it go? And one of the best parts of Recovery Kids that I love is, yes, donate to the homeless, yes, donate to the downtown east side, yes, donate to that world, but a lot of times what gets forgotten is when people get out of the downtown east side or other areas where there's homelessness and addiction, they get forgotten about. People in early recovery, they ain't giving people free cell phones after treatment, that are 4 months clean, but they're giving free cell phones to everyone in the downtown east side. And there's a message there. We forget about people in early recovery, and Alexis saw that loophole years ago, and helping out a lot of guys. So Alexis, fill us in. How did it go?
Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you so much to everybody who donated. We were able to help over 400 kids this year.
Nice.
And what was so amazing about that, and we help women too. So we help the Union Gospel Mission in the Sanctuary. So the women that are currently in the Sanctuary, which is a satellite program that they have that helps women stay with their babies for an entire year. In a safe place where they're able to recover and maintain abstinence. We helped them as well. So we got them pajamas and gift cards to Tim Hortons, because what new mom doesn't need coffee? Seriously. and comfy pajamas and like journals that they can write in and sort of, it's such an amazing tool, journals and that kind of thing. So it didn't just go there. And then we were also able to help some women and men that were out of treatment. So not only did we help and we added more recovery houses at the last minute, and then we reached out to some people who were alumni from the centers who are, maybe newly living on their own in the last 3, 4, 5 months and have their kids with them. And some of them don't have their kids with them, but and that they're still in care or with someone else, but they're able to see them over the Christmas holidays. And so we were able to hook them up. And then there was one family who's, there were twin girls who were 6 years old. And their mom overdosed last year and passed away and are living with their grandma. And we were able to help that family. So, it doesn't just stop there. It's like we really encompass all things recovery. We help, harm reduction as well. We do believe that there is there's a need for people. It's like sort of what exactly what Giuseppe is talking about. Once you get recovery and you're sort of in, and you're not addicted anymore, you don't need the services of the downtown east side or whatever. Like it's sort of like, okay, now you're recovered, go out and live your life. Congratulations. And the need to support. You might probably my kids in the background right now. It doesn't stop there, and so this year we are going to expand it from Recovery Kids from Presents at Christmas. We're going to start offering scholarships for sports and art programs. We're going to start doing a back to school campaign, and we're going to do a program where you can apply to have the fees for school, especially like high school. If your kids want to play sports in high school, the fees will be paid directly to the school on your behalf, things like that. And so we really want to expand it past Christmas. We've been doing this for now, we're in our 9th year, and we really want to make this bigger. So we're really, really excited. And, it's not even me, like Giuseppe, you saw this when we went to the last door, like our kids, the kids of the moms and dads that are volunteering and doing this, like my kids are affected by this. Brittany's kids were in there helping dads wrap. Like it creates, for generations coming up, empathy, compassion, and living a life of service. And so,
it's pretty
really
cool.
excited.
And when you show up to treatment, you hear all this about giving back and people give back, but I don't know about you, Darren or Amanda or Alexis. I questioned it. I was like, yeah, that's not true. Like people aren't that nice. Like nobody gives back. And then you see these guys, with 30 days, 60 days and rehab, and getting, and this was a couple of days ago here in our facility, it's like, oh, you have 4 kids, these are their ages, here's gifts for you to wrap, and they're holding their gifts. And there's a moment when they're holding them and they're like, is this real? Like you're like, and we're not talking, like there was some beautiful stuff there, we're talking, some great gifts. And there's that appreciation, and that's the new memories, and that's the beginnings of, I can buy into this. Like I can buy into this. So, and because of this, Alexis, too, we had some alumni who received gifts years ago also participate and take, hey, do you need anything else? And I was given gifts, now I have a job, and like, what else do you need? And they took them on a shopping trip as well to get some more items. And they weren't doing that when they were, hustling on the downtown east side, buying gifts for their friends, kind of thing. So it creates this ripple effect. So, wanted to, finish up the show with some holiday cheer. And, it's great to hear 400 kids, getting Christmas
Amazing.
presents, which possibly may not have gotten that kind of love this year due to addiction. So thank you, Alexis, and to your entire team. How do people learn more about you and how to donate and so forth?
Yeah, so we are still collecting donations. We have a warehouse for next year. We also are collecting cash donations to go towards the things that I was just speaking about. You can go to www.recoverykids with a Z, kids with a Z.com. You can email us at recoverykids with a Z at yahoo.com. And you can find us on Instagram with the same name. And you can just reach out, DM us. Like I'm the one answering the emails and everything. So it's I would love to, even if you just want to reach out, if you've been supported in the past and want to, write us anonymously, even, so that we can put testimonials on our website. We're looking for that. And, yeah, that's how you reach us.
When we were speaking with recovery kids, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I was like,
yeah.
You were talking about like, next year. I was like, careful what you wish for. It's going to be a lot. And I was like, we'll talk next year. And we're 2 weeks later, and you guys have already like gone into, the sports and like where we can help beyond Christmas. And I'm blown away. Like, it makes me feel so good. Like that's what we're talking about. That there's people that put in that type of energy for so many people, that it's without it like a monetary return or anything like that. Like, I mean, we always hear that, Christmas is about giving and things like that, but we can go out of our way and worry about ourselves and do for ourselves, and like the going out of our way to do that for other people. I don't know, man. Like, how do you argue with that? Like, it's not just some fluffy cliche. It's like, it's the real deal. Like, you're impacting so many people in such positive ways. I don't know.
I love
I
it.
hope this message gets out there.
I know the impact of my own addiction on my own kids. And so if we can, like, the mission of Recovery Kids is if we can help support and set up these kids for success in their life, so that the impact of addiction is a positive thing. It's like, this stuff is out there, but we can turn our lives, and that there's possibility is endless. So if we can help by giving laptops to kids who can't afford it, or science programs or arts programs or sports programs or whatever, so that we can in any way help reverse the trauma of addiction on the families and move it into a positive zone, that's our mission.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a great
Beautiful.
mission.
I mean, if we're
The
ever
best
gonna
gift ever, an opportunity.
Mhm.
Come on, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that's
We
awesome.
have to, as a province, as a country, we need to invest more into recovery-oriented systems of care. That's what this is all about. It's about, helping families, have loved ones that are in recovery. They all say addiction's a chronic relapsing disease. You think that, okay, well, let's help people not relapse by building these recovery-oriented systems of care. And Alexis, yeah, it's unique that you're supporting people in early recovery. Like, it's not common. You know what I mean? And so thank you for even, you're doing things that even our leaderships and politics aren't even considering. I mean, continuing care isn't even on the forecast of treatment providers. Like, you do treatment and that's it. There's no conversation of support after rehab. But we're never going to get over this overdose crisis until we all sit at the table. Amanda, any final thoughts? We got a couple of minutes left.
Oh, okay. I just want to say thanks, Alexis. Like, last year, I was working with a mother and a grandma, and they showed up in Abbotsford and gave this woman who's living in a tent, and she was going home, and she was able to bring her 8 grandchildren gifts. So, Alexis, like, you even hit the streets to get to the tables, and a woman was able to show up and lessen the shame,
Oh,
So
beautiful.
I just wanted to share that, and I got to watch that in action, so I felt that, and I can relive that feeling of that gift. So amazing.
That's beautiful. Well, special thanks to who that person was. That's amazing. You're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. We come to you live every Thursday, noon to 1 on Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM, or you're watching us here live on Facebook with our Zoom feed, and replay us on your favorite streaming device. Go to talkrecoveryradio.com to find out which streaming devices we're on. Well, Darren, we're going to be taking a break. And then when we come back in 2022, it's going to be our 8th season, 8th year of doing shows, bringing you recovery issues, helping add a different narrative to our conversations about addiction in Canada. Darren, special thank you for being part of our insane world for 7 years so far.
I love the hat.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it. Like, I don't know. I'm just thinking, like, go out and and see how many thank yous you can get. You know what I mean? Like I just think about, like, how do I want to live my life? Like, what kind of mindset can I be in? Well, what if I went out today and saw and tried to get as many thank yous? Like, what would that do for me? What would my perspective be? And I mean, you guys, like both of you, you two, Giuseppe, come on. Like, you know, we get people saying thank you to us, and for good reason. Like, and thank you.
Pretty cool. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you got anything out of the show earlier, you know, if you have the opportunity to go to a meeting during the holidays, if you have the opportunity to, if you don't do 12-step meetings, go to an online other support meeting, and you're like, yeah, I'm not into it, you know, ask yourself why, and ask yourself if that's a healthy choice. And if opportunities there, but you know, life shows up, and there's real, you know, there's life shows up, it's okay. Like, live life. That's what recovery is all about, the freedom to
Thanks.
choose. So thanks for listening to Talk Recovery Radio. Alexis, thank you. Amanda, thank you. Darren, see you in a couple of weeks.
Happy
And,
holidays,
happy
everybody.
holidays, season
Bye,
greetings,
Darren.
Merry Christmas. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. Talk Recovery Radio.
Bye-bye.